prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas. So that is the latest that we are getting as far as these proceedings are there. Remember, the arraignment at the New York courthouse has now begun. And what Nicolas Maduro, the deposed Venezuelan president, is saying at the moment is that, one, he's pleaded not guilty in the narco-terrorism case that has been pressed against him by the Trump administration. Number two, he says, I am the president of Venezuela. I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas. So Nicolas Maduro being defined, he's not succumbing to or accepting the charges that have been pressed against him. He's saying, I am innocent, I'm a decent man, I am president. Let me go back to Susan. Susan, Nicolas Maduro, of course, pleading not guilty in the narco-terror case that has been pressed against him. He's saying, I am still the president of Venezuela, even as the Trump administration tries him in some very serious charges that can lead to life imprisonment as well.
Right, and this was expected, that he was going to plead not guilty. We are now getting updates and breaking news that an individual named Mark Donnelly expected to also hear from the judge. What is going to be expected, despite the fact that Maduro is pleading not guilty, is that the judge is probably going to call for detention until the trial gets underway without bail. And that, as I mentioned, could take a year or even years. So that's something that we're expecting as well. But no surprise there. Yes, Maduro was going to say that he was going to plead not guilty. And also he's going to pin this on, quote unquote, American imperialism, according to reporters inside the courthouse right now.
It's also interesting as we speak, Susan, in Venezuela, there is its action against Venezuela, not just at home during that press conference, but at a global level as well, as we saw in the UN Security Council meeting that has been convened, that is still underway, that still has countries' representatives speaking about what respective countries think about the U.S. action against Venezuela. Susan, till when can we expect? The arraignment has begun. Now, of course, eventually this will lead to the trial, but how long will this process be through the day?
Yeah. The arraignment is expected to be very fast. The lawyers that we talk to say that this is just very procedural. For example, you can just take into consideration if it was any other individual who was charged with narcotics or narco-terrorism. This usually the arraignment just goes very fast, and by early afternoon, if not less than an hour, this is going to be done. This is very procedural and very common, of course, because of the implications of Maduro and his wife being on trial. This is very significant in the geopolitical aspect of it, but nonetheless, the arraignment itself from a procedural standpoint usually is very fast.
Interesting, Susan, while all of this goes on inside the courthouse, there are several people who are protesting against the capture of Nicolas Maduro as well. So far as we know, a lot of voices coming out of Venezuela had said that we are happy that he has been captured and he's gone. But there are several other voices who also oppose this U.S. action against the president.
Right, we saw those protests not only in Venezuela, but here across the United States as well. There's really mixed feelings. And even those that are protesting against the capture of Maduro, there are a lot of them, notably in government, and this falls along party lines. They're very careful to say that while Maduro was someone that they didn't consider the rightful leader of Venezuela or someone that was putting the population in harm's way because of the way that he was governing, they still believe the manner that the United States went about and did this is not acceptable to them. And one of those aspects is they really thought that, if this was going to go as far as the president of the United States saying that we're going to take over Venezuela and control it, well, that has elements of regime change in it, then it should have had congressional approval. And those are discussions that are happening right now at the United Nations as we speak.
Susan, what's also interesting is how the judge, the 92-year-old Justice Helston, is hearing this case, and he's somebody who had opposed Donald Trump's move to deport students and activists who support Palestine and who support the Gaza cause. And therefore, it's going to be interesting to see what he says about the entire legality of this process and whether he takes this case forward or says that, look, this is something that is illegal and this shouldn't be happening inside a U.S. court.
Yeah, that's very, very unlikely. This is, the case against Maduro regarding narco-trafficking and narco-terrorism is a very strong case from the state. That is sort of aside from the fact of the manner that Maduro was brought to the United States. And this judge, and of course, the Southern District of New York, really is the most aggressive federal jurisdiction when it comes to international crime, notably narco-terrorism. The state usually has a very strong case when it comes to its actual allegations. But then the issue of, again, extradition and how Maduro and whether or not he's legally a head of state or not, whether he should be tried as a head of state, those aspects of it may come into question. But the charges against him, the state believes and the court believes are pretty solid. But nonetheless, we're going to hear from the judge, of course, how he views this case altogether. But prosecutors are very confident because it bypassed especially two different administrations. And he was on a most wanted list on the part of the United States, that they have a pretty solid case against him.
That's right. And, the charges that the indictment states are on 4 counts. Let's tell our viewers more on this. One is, of course, the narco-terrorism conspiracy. The other one is import of cocaine into United States of America. The third one is the possession of machine guns and, destructive devices. And the fourth one is conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. Extremely serious, significant charges that have been put against Nicolas Maduro, and therefore it will be hard, of course, for him to get away with just pleading innocent.
Yeah, that's a very valid case. And not that they're related. I think it's important that our viewers know that the International Criminal Court is also in a separate investigation, has alleged crimes against humanity in Venezuela. So that's an ongoing court as well.
That's right. And what the latest that we're getting to know is that Nicolas Maduro has said that we would like to have a consular visit. So he's, of course, asking for diplomatic help. Whether or not he gets it, we'll have to wait and watch. But at the moment, what we're getting to know is that both Nicolas Maduro, the deposed Venezuelan president, and his wife, Celia Flores, have pleaded not guilty, as was expected. Maduro also continues to say that he remains the president of Venezuela. And now we're getting to know that Maduro has said that we would like to have a consular visit. So, Susan, of course, Nicolas Maduro and his wife trying all means possible for them to get some relief in this particular case. We'll have to, of course, wait and watch what the judge says, what the court says. But as we've talked about, this is a long process. At the moment, of course, the focus being on the initial statements that are made by both Nicolas Maduro and his wife, as well as the American government.
Absolutely. And the next step is going to be where Nicolas Maduro is going to be held. Remember, he's been held at the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center, very notorious for its bad conditions. That's the center that not only Sean Diddy Combs was held in, but also Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Bernie Madoff, a lot of El Chapo, a lot of other individuals. And while the judge is expected to call for detention without bail, definitely until the trial goes on, the question remains, where is Maduro and his wife? Where are they going to be held? Are they going to continue to be held at the Metropolitan Detention Center? Are they going to be relocated? Are they going to get those counselor visits? And to what extent will his lawyers be able to argue at least for some kind of leeway. Their best argument at this point is, despite the fact that the United States and some Western states did not consider Maduro to be the legitimate leader of Venezuela, well, he was governing a sovereign state. So they're going to take that route. And while it's very unlikely that the charges would be dropped altogether, they may get some kind of leniency just because of the position of this individual.
You know, talking about high-profile cases and leniency, Susan, one of the high-profile cases that has come under Trump administration has been that of the former Honduran president, Orlando Hernandez. And that is something that, that case led to a 45-year sentence being given out to the former president. But eventually, Donald Trump gave him a pardon. Is that a possibility at the moment? Many legal experts say no. But maybe if there is a possibility of that.
Yeah, the Honduras case has often been termed as sort of a hypocrisy on the part of the Trump administration. He and his administration had their reasonings, but I think the case of Maduro is a lot similar to the
All right, Susan, I'm going to keep coming back to you for the latest from New York. At the moment, thank you very much for joining us and getting us the latest on WION. Of course, we'll keep getting you the latest as far as the arraignment as well as the trial of Nicolas Maduro and his wife are concerned in a New York court. With that, it's time for a short break. News and updates continue on WION.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight is on the US-Venezuela military operation. We're telling you more about that operation and where things stand right now, along with the key developments and the big questions. Can the United States run another country in the 21st century? How is the world reacting at this point? What does America want from Venezuela? And where do things go from here? All this and more coming up. US President Donald Trump has sent a big warning to the world: obey or face the consequences. It may have started with Venezuela, but now Cuba, Colombia, even Greenland are in his sight. And this is not just about one strike. It's about oil, it's about energy routes, it's about power for the United States. And America, under Trump, has put concepts like sovereignty of a country, democracy, international law and order back on the back burner, it seems. And the world is watching. How far will America go? Who will truly pay the price for all of this? We're asking those questions tonight. First, let's just get you up to speed with the developments and what Donald Trump has said today. Speaking aboard Air Force One, the American president declared that Cuba is ready to fall. Cuba is ready to fall, arguing that Havana can no longer survive without heavily subsidized Venezuelan oil. In fact, he insisted that America would not even need to intervene militarily. Let's play out that statement for you first.
Cuba is ready to fall. You know? Yes. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall.
And at the same time, Trump also doubled down on another claim that he has made repeatedly, that America needs Greenland for national security. Of course, strong objections came in from Denmark and Greenland's leaders. Trump said Washington would return to the issue soon, but then these remarks are not happening in isolation. It comes as the world remains in shock following the U.S. Special Forces shock military operation that unfolded in Venezuela over the weekend. America captured Nicolas Maduro, flew him to New York, where he is to face narco-trafficking charges. And despite the success of the initial U.S. operation, questions are, of course, mounting over Trump's Venezuela strategy and what's really going on here. When asked who is running Venezuela, Trump responded to that: it means we are in charge. That's what he says. Trump says that America would run Venezuela, fix it, and hold elections later. This after he described Venezuela as a broken country. Those were the words used, broken country. But then the U.S. Secretary of State stressed on Sunday that Washington is not seeking complete regime change or elections. He told the press that America is fighting drug traffickers and not a war against Venezuela. But then the message from Washington is absolutely clear. Elections can wait, but control, specifically U.S. control, comes first. And when asked whether this was about oil or regime change, Trump said, I'm quoting again, it's about peace on earth. In Venezuela, residents are lining up for food, hospitals refusing to release casualty numbers, doctors' groups saying dozens may have been killed.
Salió a las calles de Caracas a decirle al mundo que levante la voz por el secuestro de nuestro presidente.
So the question really is, can America realistically run Venezuela now? Because the shockwaves are spreading fast and beyond, well beyond Caracas. In Colombia, for that matter, left-wing guerrilla groups are vowing to confront what they call U.S. imperial plans after the U.S. president accused Colombia's president of running cocaine operations and even hinted at possible military action. Colombia's president reacted sharply, saying, and I'm quoting here, "Friends do not bomb." Colombia has also reinforced its border with Venezuela and issued alerts for possible attacks by the armed groups. And then there is Greenland, of course. Its prime minister has also issued a rare public warning to Washington. I'm quoting from that statement. That's enough now. No more pressure, no more fantasies of annexation. That statement on your screen. No more fantasies of annexation. European leaders, meanwhile, have also closed ranks behind Denmark. Remember, Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. So what does America's action and also its president's warning mean when you put all of that together? The thing is, Trump has directly said that this looks like a modern revival of the Monroe Doctrine, a 19th century idea that the Western Hemisphere is America's sphere of influence, where outside powers stay out. And Washington calls the shots. The difference here really is, in the 19th century, empires expanded by force. It was considered legal. But this is the 21st century, remember. Conquest means violation of international law, which then raises the core question that we're all asking tonight. Can a 19th century doctrine really work in the 21st century? And up to speed with the latest now, Venezuela's captured leader, Nicolas Maduro, has been brought to court in Manhattan to face criminal drug charges, along with his wife. Let's just get in further updates now from our correspondent, Susan Teherani, who's been tracking those developments on the ground for the very latest. Susan, tell us more about what you're gathering at this point. A lot of questions, a lot of speculation, at the same time curiosity about what lies ahead. But tell us more about what is expected to unfold.
I'm standing outside the courthouse where Nicolas Maduro is currently inside along with his wife. He's going to face his charges today by a judge. Those include narco-terrorism charges, conspiracy to import cocaine to the United States, weapons offenses linked to drug trafficking, and coordination with Colombia's FARC, which is a group designated by the United States as being a terrorist entity. This is Nicolas Maduro and his wife's arraignment. His wife is going to be charged on conspiracy charges regarding cocaine and drug trafficking as well. And it's expected to be very fast. Then the prosecutors are going to tell the judge how long it's going to take for them to gather the evidence and put together this case, although the case has really been put together since the first Trump presidency all the way into the Biden presidency and again, Trump's second term. It's going to be very fast, but he is not going to be able to defend himself, although he's pleading not guilty, perhaps a year from now in 2027. You have to think about jury selection and putting all of this material together. The prosecutors really have their hands full, and we're probably going to get that court hearing in 2027, and it's going to be a years-long process. We are expected to hear from the judge to say that he's going to be detained without bail. Whether or not he's going to stay at the Metropolitan Detention Center or not, that's yet to be seen. We're going to get a lot of details after this arraignment takes place. But I will tell you, while this is very procedural, it's almost as procedural as any other individual who is facing drug and narco-terrorism charges. It's going to have geopolitical implications. Now, we are expected to hear that Maduro is going to deny all the charges and he's going to pin them on American imperialism. There's going to be a lot of debate on whether or not it was justified for the United States to take a leader of a sovereign country. Then the debate for that is because the many Western countries, including the United States, did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. He was disputed after the election recently in 2024 and the election previous to that as well. So this is going to be very mundane inside, but outside of the courtroom, it appears, is where the action is. Molly, if you'd like, I can show you what we're witnessing while there is a trove of international and national media gathered here. What I'm showing you right now is a group of protesters, a humble group that has grown in size. Some are protesting Maduro's detainment. There are others with Trump and Venezuelan flags who are in support of Maduro being in this courthouse and being extradited to the United States. There was some skirmishes between the protesters over there across the street, and it appears that the police have tampered it down by putting a barricade between the supporters of Maduro, who called this a quote-unquote kidnapping, and those who are on the side of the United States and say that his detention was basically justified. So a lot of action happening here outside, but it is inside the courtroom that we're going to get the news and the headlines. I do want to also say that as we are standing here outside of this courtroom downtown, Midtown Manhattan is where the United Nations is. The Security Council is holding an emergency meeting right now. Russia and China supported it. Venezuela's ambassador is sitting in that Security Council meeting. It is expected to speak. The U.S. ambassador, Mike Waltz, is also there. A number of countries, including Iran and Cuba, have requested to speak at that meeting as well. Of course, we are expected to hear varying viewpoints regarding this issue at the tables and at the table at the Security Council as well. So we'll bring you all the latest regarding that as well. But nonetheless, an extraordinary day to see the leader, once the disputed leader and now the deposed leader of Venezuela and his wife in handcuffs, less than 72 hours after he was essentially running Venezuela, and now he's here in New York.
Indeed, a lot to take in, definitely. Susan getting us those updates right outside the court where Nicolas Maduro will be appearing in just a while from now. Of course, we've been also putting together the reactions and the developments. The UN Security Council, as Susan also said, currently meeting on Venezuela. The UN Secretary General, in fact, has called for respect for the political independence of states after Trump said that America is in charge of Venezuela. Susan, I want to get a sense from you of the sentiment on the ground overall and how these developments really have been reported in the United States, and specifically talking about what we heard earlier from Trump, categorically saying that America is in charge.
Right. But there has been some pushback from Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Sunday, saying that it doesn't mean that America is going to be completely in charge of Venezuela. It appears that the messaging from the White House hasn't been very clear on the next steps moving forward. And that may be intentional, Molly. It doesn't seem to be accidental. But nonetheless, at this point, there are, those that support this wholeheartedly, full-fledged. And those that oppose it, they are very cautiously opposing it, at least in public and in government. They're saying that they do agree that Maduro was not the right leader for Venezuela and he was putting his population under suffering. But they're also concerned at the manner that the United States carried out this operation. And they're also concerned that how and to what extent the United States is going to be involved in Venezuela. On the ground, when you talk to ordinary Venezuelans, they're fired up, they're very passionate. Many of them, the diaspora here in New York and across the United States, are thanking President Trump for doing this. While they acknowledge that things aren't perfect and they're not ideal, and the future is very unknown, to say the least, they believe that Nicolas Maduro was a force of suppression for them. Even the illegal migrants who are here in the United States, who've often faced the wrath of this administration, some of them were standing outside of this courthouse saying that they became illegal migrants and crossed the border here in the United States from Venezuela because of Nicolas Maduro. Right. And the policies that he had against the country. Nonetheless, there are many who believe that this is American imperialism at its finest. This is just for America to exert influence in the Western Hemisphere and also that it's more about the oil than bringing a dictator to justice.
And of course, we'll be coming back to you, Susan, for those updates. As you said, that is where the action is, right outside the court. We were earlier discussing about the security arrangements that have been made as well. Given the sensitivity attached, of course, a glimpse of the international media station there, developments that are being closely monitored from around the world. In fact, this is 2 days after America seized Nicolas Maduro in that surprise military operation. The reactions continue to trickle in. They are swift, they are sharp, and deeply divided at the same time. Let's just start off with how China has reacted. Beijing has condemned the U.S. action in unusually strong language, in a way, accusing Washington of acting like a world policeman. Listen up.
We never believe that any country should act as world's policeman, nor do we approve of any country regarding itself as the international judge. The sovereignty and security of all countries should be fully protected under international law.
And China has also made it clear this will not stop at rhetoric. Beijing, along with Russia, backed Colombia's request for an emergency UN Security Council meeting where the legality of the U.S. action will be challenged. Now, all of this is significant given that Venezuela has been one of China's closest strategic partners in Latin America, politically, economically, symbolically. China invested billions in Venezuelan oil, infrastructure, trade, especially as U.S. sanctions tightened. Analysts are saying Maduro's capture is a major blow to China's claim that it offers a non-interventionist alternative to U.S. power politics. China may not intervene militarily, but diplomatically it is expected to lead global opposition at the United Nations. Russia has also condemned the operation as an act of armed aggression, demanding Maduro's immediate release and warning against further escalation. Iran, another close ally of Venezuela, called the seizure illegal, saying abducting a sitting president sets a dangerous precedent. North Korea, for that matter, issued a similar condemnation, calling it a serious encroachment of sovereignty. In Europe, the response has been more nuanced, but no less tense. The European Union saying any political transition in Venezuela must include opposition leaders, including Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez. Despite Trump, remember, dismissing their roles. He's been clear about that as well. EU leaders, meanwhile, have urged restraint and respect for international law. Even while acknowledging Maduro's lack of democratic legitimacy, Britain's Prime Minister said the UK would engage Washington, but added that it would shed no tears over the end of Maduro's regime. Italy stands out here. The Prime Minister, a close Trump ally, has openly defended the US operation, calling it legitimate and defensive. Global markets delivered a split verdict. Safe haven assets like gold and the US dollar surged on heightened geopolitical risks, while oil prices fluctuated as traders weighed the long-term supply prospects, US policy signals, and regime change risks. And finally, streets around the world erupted in protests. In South Korea, demonstrators gathered outside the US embassy, asking how this differs from colonialism. In Madrid, hundreds protested what they called American aggression. In New York, protesters rallied outside the jail where Maduro is being held. But among the Venezuelan diaspora, especially those who fled repression for that matter, scenes of celebration also were witnessed. For some, this is justice. For others, this is regime change by force. And at the center of all of this is that big question. The US is no longer trying to hide. What does America really want from Venezuela? The answer, according to President Trump himself, is access. When asked what he expects from the interim leader there, Trump was quick to respond. He said the US needs, and I'm quoting, total access to Venezuela's oil and to what he called other things needed to rebuild the country. Other things. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world. Remember, control or at least unfettered access would give America significant leverage over global energy flows. Oil prices, petrodollar dominance, especially at a time when China and Russia are challenging US financial power. But some critics are saying this is not a quick win. Years of sanctions, underinvestment, decayed infrastructure mean reviving Venezuela's oil sector would take years and billions of dollars, to say the least. For now, Washington's real power lies elsewhere. The Trump administration continues to blockade Venezuelan oil tankers and has made it clear that economic and military pressure remain options. While no US troops are believed to be inside Venezuela, a large naval force, including an aircraft carrier, remains positioned off its coast. The message is as unambiguous as it gets. This is about control of energy routes, not just a single leader. Washington says its justifications are migration and drugs. Remember, Trump has repeatedly linked Venezuela to mass migration at the US southern border. Since 2013, around 8 million Venezuelans have fled economic collapse and political repression, most to other Latin American countries. Trump has also accused Maduro, without presenting evidence, of emptying prisons and forcing inmates to migrate north. Of course, Caracas denies those claims. On drugs, the Trump administration has argued that Venezuela is a key cocaine transit hub and a big contributor to the fentanyl crisis back home. 2 Venezuelan criminal groups have been designated foreign terrorist organizations, remember. Trump has also claimed that cartel is led by Maduro himself. Critics say this frames a geopolitical power play as a law enforcement operation. Even some opposition figures are cautious. Venezuela's opposition candidate, who claims that he won the 2024 election, has said US intervention was important, but without free elections and the release of political prisoners, it was not enough. So will America's seizure of Maduro fix Venezuela's problems? This is not just about Venezuela. It's about to what extent the US is actually willing to go and what it's willing to normalize. The US did not act through allies. It did not act through the United Nations. It acted alone, by force, and then demanded access. Democracy, if it comes at all, is a secondary question for now. By toppling Maduro without a clear plan, it seems, for what follows, America may have made a point about its power, but it has not yet taken responsibility as such. And that is where the real test would lie. And before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Amid the Iran protests, and as the US and Israel escalate the rhetoric, what lies ahead? Is this the start of something dangerous? As China hits Taiwan with cyber strikes, what's the strategy here? We're getting you the updates in just a bit. How worried should the world be about a future ruled not by humans but by super intelligent machines? We get to the complete story and why this question is being asked. All this and more coming up.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Tonight, the world is getting a clear and consistent message from Washington. Obey or else. President Trump is once again projecting the image of a strongman leader, warning allies and adversaries alike that economic pressure, diplomatic coercion, even military threats remain very much on the table. From trade to war crimes, from tariffs to sanctions, the Trump doctrine appears simple. America sets the rules and the world falls in line, at least they hope. Speaking aboard Air Force One alongside U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, Trump doubled down on his warning of steeper tariffs on Indian imports, even as he praised Prime Minister Modi and highlighted the complexity of the India-U.S. relationship.
They wanted to make me happy, basically. He wanted to, Modi's a very good man. Yes. He's a good guy. He knew I was not happy, and it was important to make me happy. They do trade. And we could raise tariffs on them very quickly, and it would be very bad for them.
The warning comes despite ongoing trade talks and a recent telephonic conversation between the two leaders aimed at preserving bilateral momentum. Tariffs as high as 50%, remember, have already disrupted negotiations. Economic partnership comes with conditions. Senator Graham has even claimed that these measures are the primary reason India has cut back on Russian oil purchases.
We put a 25% tariff on India for buying Russian oil. I was at the Indian ambassador's house about a month ago, and all he wanted to talk about is how they're buying less Russian oil. Would you tell the president to relieve the tariff?
Now, while Trump continues to wield tariffs as a tool of pressure, the question still is looming over Washington. Can he afford a prolonged trade war with India? New Delhi is not just a major export market, remember, but a strategic counterweight to China and a key partner in defense, technology, energy. Escalating tariffs risking undercutting U.S. businesses, disrupting supply chains, pushing India to deepen ties with other global powers. And these tariffs also raising huge doubts over whether such economic coercion will actually deliver gains or will they create lasting strategic costs? Let's now shed more light on all of this. Recently, Trump shared data showing which immigrant groups use welfare in American soil, and India was not on the list. That's because Indian Americans are among the highest earning communities in the US. Studies showing they rely very little on public assistance and pay significantly more in taxes. Experts say Indian Americans are net contributors to the economy and are often called welfare makers and not welfare takers.